Arcade Heroes.
Alright, greetings, welcome to Arcade Heroes, and I am here with Gesture Art and Design, but personally known as...
David.
Benjamin.
And Benjamin. And so they've brought me here to Los Angeles to see their new game, and so we're going to talk about that, and so introduce yourselves.
Yeah,
and
nice. You want to go first?
There.
Sure. My name is Benjamin Sherman. I'm a game designer and R&D tech by trade. I like to create things with novel interfaces for entertainment.
I'm David, and I guess I'm the finance product guy, and you're looking at the two-person team behind this game sitting right here.
And what is it?
It's Food Flight. Right now it says Food Fight, which is not not the actual title.
Not final.
But it's a gesture-controlled redemption game where you are a sort of hapless robot trying to carry as much food as you can and carry as much not food as you can't.
I think it's a romantic story about robot fails is how I have to take a look at it.
Yeah.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And so, how did this project come about? What's the genesis behind it?
That's a good question. I think we actually went to the show floor at AEI this year in Las Vegas, and Ben and I were actually going there trying to talk to different arcade manufacturers and developers about deploying gesture expertise. And we ran into quite a few manufacturers that were somewhat lukewarm about the prospect of doing motion capture based control schemes, and so we decided, well, if you guys aren't interested, we're just gonna build our own, and we'll see where this goes. And so we've been pretty pedal to the metal since March, and what you're looking at here is actually a prototype unit here that we built here in Los Angeles, and we will be showing at IAPA a manufacturer unit on the show floor that's in November. So that's where we are today.
And so this right here on the screen is close to final? What we'll see.
Yeah, so in principle, this is very close. There's some minor adjustments that we learned through the manufacturing process. This is actually a render of this physical cabinet that I'm sitting on and demonstrating the solidness of the construction. But in essence, you kind of see we've got our two depth sensors up here, a couple of speakers down here, and largely this is the form factor that the cabinet will come in, and it's not final art, but the color schemes will be around those types of palettes. Yeah.
And as you mentioned too, this part's not going to be a bench that kids can sit on exactly.
Yes,
It'll
so
change.
the design principle behind this originally was that we wanted to make sure that we could house all the computing units down there, and also make sure that this thing was balanced so that it doesn't tip over.
Yeah.
We got some feedback from some people that said, hey, that's a great bench surface for people to put all kinds of stuff and spill drinks on. So in the design that you'll see on the IAPA show floor, this will be slanted to make it less easy to just set a Coke there and spill it all over the
natural.
place. And if you were to, it's just an easy wipe. That's that's the goal. Yeah.
Gotcha. And so you had mentioned it's a redemption game. But it also has an amusement mode. What's the difference between the two game modes?
The difference is, like a lot of redemption games, the redemption mode is pretty short. It's a quick playthrough. You put in your credit and you play, and that play is just one and done. And depending on how well you do, you collect your reward. The actual video game mode is multiple stages. The better you play, the longer you can play. You can play with or against people, and so I think that covers it, right?
Yeah. And so as you can see, there's two sensors up at the top there. What sensors are these again?
These are the latest Microsoft Azure Connect sensors that came out in 2020. Microsoft recently discontinued them, and so we're going to go with another sensor for the manufactured item that are essentially equivalent in specification.
Gotcha. And so, as you mentioned, it can handle up to 2 players. For that, for some nice competitive fun. This will have leaderboards on it.
It'll have like a local scoreboard, yes.
Local scoreboard. I guess it's still kind of tentative or to be determined on any sort of online things.
So, from a product roadmap perspective, we're taking a look at being able to offer internet-connected scoreboards. Ideally, we would like to be able to offer regional scoreboards. So, a usage case example looks like you being able to come into a Dave & Buster's or come into any arcade, play the game, and you would post your score onto this local machine, but then you'd be able to see other people in the area, perhaps in the state of California, maybe down to the city level of Los Angeles, how well they scored, and then presumably you would also be able to compete, with your friends that live, elsewhere, Chicago, New York, whatever.
Right, exactly. And what other specs would you like to share on this?
Yeah,
maybe the techies out there.
Sure. I'm gonna leave some of the technical hardware components for Ben, but I think I'll kind of give you a run through of where we think this product is going to be successful. So we started with a design that we wanted to be able to fit into a variety of operating conditions. So this footprint, I know that you can't see the depth, but this footprint is approximately 13 square feet. So we wanted to have a device that doesn't take up 500 square feet. It being a motion capture device, we wanted to give it a sturdy footprint that allows for the play space to be directly in front of the player. And roughly, Adam, where you're sitting and roughly where Ben is sitting represents a good width assumption for the play space. And you can see that these sensors are tilted and kind of have these very specific cutouts. Those are measured in a way that allows us to capture multiple bodies, and we can actually synchronize multiple sensors. There have been other arcade cabinets in the past that have tried to use a motion sensor, but we're actually the first one to use multiple sensors and have them sync together. So that's sort of the key sort of feature of this cabinet. You'll notice that unlike most arcade machines you come across, there's no joystick, there is no light gun, there are no buttons. This particular machine doesn't have a coin door. The sample that you will see at IAAPA on the show floor, they'll have the payment coin door. We'll actually also have waterproof speakers. I think that's pretty important to a lot of operators. Just, this is the most likely place someone's gonna spill something. Particularly being a motion capture device, we're making the assumption that there's going to be quite a few players that might want to be holding a drink in their hand while they play, so want to make sure that that's protected.
Not every place like mine bans food. So.
Right. Well, yeah, that's the thing is most FECs, they're going to have French fries. This is going to land all over this machine. It's actually kind of
which
part
one's
of the
real, which
inspiration.
one's ours.
Exactly.
And I also assume there will be covers over these two sensors.
So
here.
the production model actually has these sensors further inlet, like they're going to be inset a lot more. The reason why we don't put a cover on here is because the sensor requires a direct, no physical impediments in between. There are some very specialized low sodium optical grade like tempered glass that we could machine. They're going to be pretty prohibitively expensive for most people to replace, and actually it kind of brings to the second sort of design inspiration behind this machine is that we wanted to make this a very easy machine to maintain. So as I was kind of talking to you earlier, at AEI we ran into quite a few operators that directly expressed to us their desire for new products and new machines to be more easily maintainable. We heard in different words, my machine is broken all the time, I'm constantly fixing stuff, parts are super expensive, And so one of the things that we're really proud of is that we use a very standard computer on the inside. It's obviously, you know, loaded with some high-end graphics cards and the hardware, that stuff Ben can go over later. But these, obviously this is a very standard 55-inch screen. Every single piece of component that goes in here has been selected with repairability in mind, so and replaceability in mind. So these sensors are probably the most specialized piece of equipment, but I can tell you that it's not going to be a $700 light gun expense to replace. And the reason why we have the sensors so far up here, and I'm just going to stand up a little bit, and the reason why this kind of juts out a little bit, in addition to housing the compute unit, is that this kind of prevents kids from coming up and messing with the machines. I'm 5'8", and you'd have to be fairly intentional about vandalization to kind of get up here. And then, as I mentioned before, the production model, these sensors will actually be even further laid in within sort of this first front plate here.
And something David glossed over, but it's important, is we don't have any protective plexi or tempered glass in front of those, but those are robust. They're designed primarily for use in like automated warehousing, and so you can't dunk it in a bathtub, but if you're playing this with your Pepsi and the Pepsi splashes on the thing, it'll be okay.
Yes,
Fortunately,
splash and dust resistance.
Right, that's rare. Even where I ban food and drink, it's rare that I've seen something go flying right there. But of course, anything can happen out there. But and you answered one of the questions I was going to ask. It's like, why create an arcade machine without controls? Because that's oftentimes you go into any arcade and you will see, everything has some kind of control, physical, tactile control feature to it. But you pretty much answered that already. Is to it's a maintenance thing, giving us something less to worry about. Because like this past year, I had to replace one of the guns on my Jurassic Park because kids were so rough with it over such a length of time. It broke the weld in the metal, and that becomes frustrating. And there's other things too. And anybody who's watched videos before where I'm doing a live stream and somebody jumps on the maximum tune and they start slamming the shifter, and I have to ask them to stop doing that. It becomes a point of frustration for the operator because I look at that and it's like, gosh, how many hundreds of dollars is it going to cost for me to replace that one part? And so this is that different dynamic too.
It's actually so those are all really great reasons, and those are obviously the reasons that we shot for. But I think one of the things that, from a player's perspective, so the customers of the operators, this represents an opportunity for us to create a new control mechanism, and it represents an opportunity for the industry to actually offer a product that's not available at home. I know that many of you out there will take a look at this and hear, Ben just said Azure Connect. It's that thing that Microsoft pushed a couple of years ago. And I would say that, aside from it technically, actually from a hardware perspective being a completely different device, these hardware sensors, the technology has changed and improved. The way that the detection for motion has changed, it's also completely different than what Microsoft was pushing. Kinect was probably close to almost 10 years ago now. And I think one of the value propositions that we hope that operators will see, and really for the gamers it'll be important, is that this is not an experience that they get to have at home. You can't load a motion capture game on your phone. It does not exist for the Xbox One, etc. We want to offer an opportunity for operators to say, hey, there's a device in my arcade. It's awesome, it's fun, and guess what? Like, you can't download it on the iOS store. You just got to come in and play it and experience it for yourself. And I think that's the unique thing about these type of control mechanisms for us, is that we've turned the controller into software. So, our launch title is Food Flight. It is a whimsical robot fail story. And there's nothing to really stop us from offering additional game types. Earlier you asked, what's the difference between the redemption mode and the arcade mode? We'd like to sort of expand upon that and saying, this cabinet can offer either modes. Like operators can choose to turn on the ticket mode, but above else, there are other arcade experiences that we have ideas for that's going to be coming down the pipeline. And it's because not only are there full body motion types gameplay that we've envisioned, there's certain hand gesture enabled gameplay, and those can all happen on the same machine. So future-proofing for operators is kind of something that we thought about when we designed this. You can reskin and revinyl and offer a different game in, a couple of days. Stick in the new software key SSD drive and you've got a new game. For the players, it represents an opportunity to say, hey, even though it's a motion capture cabinet, I can play Food Flight, I can play a different game, and it's a completely different feel, a completely different time, and a completely different experience for them at the same arcade. And that's sort of the founding idea for this cabinet.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Now, I guess going back on the technical side, something that I wondered about just now is with these exposed, how are they mounted to the cabinet? So, like, if there was a location that didn't have an attendant, and where somebody maybe was like, "Ooh, that looks nice and desirable," how is it mounted? Like any sort of security bolts, or just too difficult to get to from here, or like how would that work for security purposes?
This is actually...
so I'm sure that's a question some operators are thinking when they
like easy pickings,
anything that's exposed,
So this is a long conversation with the manufacturer, actually, because they're like, ooh, in order to put these in there in the precise location you need them, it's going to be hard for us to get for us to create this. And so if it's hard for them, it will also be hard for some, thief that might want to, take a easy pickings. The way it'll actually be mounted is on either side of the device, there's two holes. It'll just, towards the camera, it'll hold it like this. It'll hold it in a fixed position with two bolts like that. And so you would have to be able to get in and like get your hex tool in there, and while that's happening, if you want to go over
actually, I'm gonna give the more fun version of the answer. I think that in addition to these being depth sensors, so for those of you that don't know, it's a similar technology to self-driving cars, but they actually also have high definition RGB cameras. So if a perp were to try to vandalize and or steal a camera, it is equipped to essentially be able to capture the footage. So it's probably something that is akin to stealing a photo booth and having video evidence streaming right to the machine. So maybe they might try it, maybe they won't. One thing that I'll note is that because the sensor's actually going to be inset even more, it's actually, you can't get your whole hand in there to even try to rip it out. You'd have to try pretty hard. It would be similar to taking a saw, and cutting the chain on the light gun and just walking away with it. It would be that obvious.
Which would make it worthless. But I assume for an operator, if there was ever a point or reason that the sensor failed and they had to replace it, how would that work? Is it just access from the back?
Yeah. So this one is our prototype. In the manufacturing run, there's actually going to be a service door at the top of the device, and you can actually just flip it open. That's actually the final step in assembly during manufacturing. And I think it'll be very easy. You can't see it right now since you're asking about servicing. The entire rear panel is just one door, and we've designed a pull-out drawer for the computer unit, so you can just pull the whole thing out. Obviously, it's a little bit too soon to talk about what you should be doing to kind of help your machine live the longest, but obviously we designed the pull-out drawer for the computer unit so that you can easily just de-dust it. Take a can of the air can and just clean everything up, slide it back in.
It's nice. A lot of machines just have the computer strapped inside with
so I think
clip strap. That's it.
It's really funny that you said that. The pull-out door, this unit you're seeing right here doesn't have that pull-out door. We've actually had to pick this unit up and physically manage it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the weight on this is a little bit over 400 pounds. That's going to be a little bit less in the production unit, but it was incredibly difficult for us as we are building this here to service the componentry. And so we really felt that like, wow, if I only got to build this once and it's this much of a pain, you can't imagine it if you have to service it once every 2-3 weeks or whatnot. You have to get in there, and so that's kind of the genesis. We want to make it easy to maintain and easy to service because we've had to try to do it ourselves.
And literally every piece is easy to access. You know, it's like you said, the computer comes out in a drawer. All the parts we're using are available off the shelf. It should be something where you're not constantly struggling to get it working again in what we think is the rare occasion that it will break.
Right.
Because
there are no moving parts.
Right.
And
Right.
nothing that people can
to
really...
be clear, fans, fans
other
break.
Those, right?
Yeah.
Sure. Now, with that, is it still too early to want to show any software at this point?
I think we can show some software in a couple of weeks. A lot of the game itself is being tweaked as we speak. We'd love to have you come back and play it. And obviously the unit that you'll see at IAPA, that's going to be final. And even though it's not going to look like this, that one will be fully wrapped with the software, with the coin doors, and that unit is essentially ready to go.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, for anybody watching this, where are you guys going to be at IAPA, since it's an enormous show?
So we'll be exhibiting 3582.
3582 in this new exhibitors pavilion.
Yep.
Gotcha. And so how many units are you going to have at the show?
So you'll actually see our production unit, which is the one that will be fully wrapped, and we'll actually also be shipping this prototype there. So we will be debuting on this prototype unit our attract mode, which we can talk a little bit about later. And then the fully wrapped production unit will be the game itself. Now the production unit obviously will also have attract mode, but this machine here, the prototype, will primarily be used to demonstrate the attract mode on this machine.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, I assume it's too early now when we're recording this to be talking about pricing, but I assume by IAPA a lot of that will be
Yeah,
figured out.
so because we are in the final phases of figuring out the manufacturing details, we can kind of give you some guidelines. We expect this to come in pretty far under $25,000. For those of you that are kind of curious, high technology doesn't really come under $25,000 very often in this industry. But we're pretty confident that we'll be able to come in under that figure. And we are expecting that that number is going to be just straight up front, and we'll probably do a show promotion pricing. That one, we can announce at the show.
Gotcha. Have you been talking with any distributors about it?
Yeah, so we've been pretty careful about our own timelines. We don't, as you can see, we're not showing a lot of stuff right now, and we don't really want to show things until we feel like it's been QA'd and tested and ready to go.
That's why this is titled a preview.
Yeah, exactly. and actually, this is why you're here. Is we find it very important to help others see sort of the types of effort that goes into building a machine like this. It's really been a labor of love for Ben and I. As far as, to answer your question, distributors, we've talked to a couple of major distributors. We would like to, when they are ready and when we are ready, start location testing with them. Our goal is to location test as soon as possible. We might even location test at an arcade near you.
And be looking for it.
Yeah, exactly.
And, along those lines, do you want to say how much this prototype costs to create?
So
Which obviously wouldn't reflect on the final price, but just
so-
to give you an idea of what it
Yeah.
takes when you are building something like this.
And we should be clear, we called in a lot of favors, so it might actually be north of these numbers.
Yeah, so let me take a best crack at giving you the best answer, and this is all fact. If you don't count the fact that Ben and I are working for free, just
Startup
this cabinet to get it designed and built, with, the plexi, the TV. Just the cabinet itself is about $16,000. And inside here is actually a Samsung 55-inch commercial panel. And I think that one ran, how much was the panel?
I want to say it was like 700.
Yeah, like 700 or 800, and it's a commercial grade panel, so it's,
Right.
it's not just, you go to Costco and buy a TV. So I would say that the best non-labor inclusive, parts only bill of materials for this device is about $20,000. The computer inside's got some pretty beefy graphics because we want to be able to push a lot of pixels. So yeah, this unit, $20,000.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And of course, development costs are always different than manufacturing at scale. But for those out there that may have thought, well, I just want to build an arcade machine for my house or whatever. I mean, when you're doing something very customized like this, then
We should have watched a video like this before we started doing
Yeah, right. Save this,
Right.
less hair pulling.
it.
Right, well, but what's been the biggest challenges you guys have faced in doing this? Since, because you said you started about March of this year.
Manufacturing unit economics, probably, and
Yeah.
understanding pricing.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
would,
also been in a lot of flux, especially
Yeah.
the past few years.
I would say that from a business perspective, understanding the market dynamics. That's why we're here talking to you. Neither of us are operators, and we accept that. We have fond memories growing up of, going to arcades, and we can see that the arcades today aren't the arcades that we grew up with. And so one of the first things that we set out to do, and for me the biggest challenge, is to truly understand the different players in the industry, the dynamics between all the parties, and kind of understand basically how machines move. We have seen, sort of a trail before us of people that have tried to break into this industry, and they do things like they port console games, and I love console games. I have an Xbox, I play FIFA all the time. But it is a decidedly different market than, LBE, location-based entertainment, and specifically arcades. And so the biggest challenge for us is to take off our consumer perspective of our experiences with arcades and kind of approach it from a business perspective of what can we offer the gamers. First of all, like, the game itself has to be compelling and fun, and something, like I said earlier, you can't replicate at home. You want to be able to offer a unique experience.
Which is something I've said I don't know how many times on the channel.
Yeah, you can't just take an Xbox game, slap it in a TV cabinet, and hope that it's going to work. It's not going to work that way. But also understanding how it works for operators like yourself. And we've, I think in the beginning of this, I said we talked to a bajillion operators at AEI. We've talked to operators since then, and kind of try to understand, what's, basically what ticks them off. What's important, what is valuable. And then, understanding like, okay, well, how can we set about and try to tackle these problems? And that kind of gets to what Ben was saying, is that like manufacturing, all of us can take a look and go into Costco or Best Buy and see, that TV, it's $1,200, $1,300. Yeah, that's if you're manufacturing 200,000 units from Korea. I think, again, as consumers, we don't truly appreciate the scale and the effort that it requires to make something massively physical appear. We're used to being able to downloading apps and games, and it's like this, it's on your phone and you can play with it.
Yeah.
And again, back to the you can't play this on your phone, it truly is astounding the amount of effort that we have to make sure to design this product that fits for the players, the gamers that's going to play the game, fits for you, and all the other industry players, whether it be distributors or whatnot. It has to work for everybody. And that's been the challenge. That's a massive challenge that we're still solving as we speak. We're constantly solving that challenge. And then, we, like I said, we're really trying to come in at a competitive price. We recognize that we are indie developers, and that there's no reason that anyone should come in and just say, yeah, take $50,000 of mine and I hope it's good, guys. It's just not realistic, and we understand that.
Right, gotcha. anything else that comes to mind that you wanted to get across?
I mean, this is all a lot of business talk. We're
Right.
really excited for you guys to actually play the game. I know we can't show anything today yet, but if you're watching this and you are going to IAPA, please stop by, say hi, spill some food on it if you would like. We'll have plenty of that on hand. But at least come say hi. Come check out the machine and see the progress that we've made. Yeah.
Gotcha. Anything you wanted to add, Ben?
Just once again reiterating, we are on booth 3582.
Yeah, it's always forget.
Yeah.
Right, but make some time. Like, I know the first time exhibitor pavilion sometimes is one that maybe not everybody goes to. First day is, at least if you're in the arcade side, you might be going to the coin-op pavilion and seeing Raw Thrills and Bandai Namco and all that stuff. But and it's a little bit far off. It's on the northern side of the convention center. But I always enjoy going out there because I always find something fascinating over there, and something worth paying attention to, filming, talking about, and so this would be one of those things that would
come
be
check us out.
worth seeing over there. And of course, tune back in soon. There will be footage of the game that's advanced from where it is at the current moment, the current stage. And then, of course, what's going to be at IAPA itself will be even further progressed than what we're going to see in October, mid-October.
Yep.
So a couple of weeks from this point.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for bringing me out here and showing me all these things. And like I've been talking with both David and Ben. I'm online prior to this, but then like yesterday, it's lots and lots of shop talk. But I mean, I've seen you two have done a lot of research, and like I've talked with a lot of indie developers over the years, and some have put in a lot, some have not put in enough. You guys definitely put in the most that I've seen, because
Thank you.
getting a hold of distributors and operators and watching players, you've essentially been doing kind of the location test thing without your machine on the location, but just you're kind of doing the operator thing where, like you say, you're not an operator, but if you go to Dave & Buster's, like you guys said you've done many times, and you just observe players, it's like that's what I do all the time. Like I get to see how players react to games, and that's where I guess I learn as an operator what is good for me to buy and what's not.
Yeah.
Because I just get a sense over time by watching people. It's like, oh, they walk away from this game pretty frequently, and so there's obviously something wrong with this game. But then they always have a great reaction with this game, like Pac-Man Battle Royale comes to mind. It's always a game that causes screaming on the weekend because people love competing against each other or something like that. And so I appreciate as an operator seeing you guys putting that sort of effort to fully understand what the product needs to do to hopefully be a success in the industry, because what's successful for operators is also good for players, and like you said, it helps everybody out.
Exactly. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks again, and again, tune back in, and we'll be back with more stuff about Food Flight and Gesture Art and Design.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks.